Let's look at printing and making PDFs. I'm going to switch to print mode, which is Command 5 or Control 5. And there's a nice preview in the middle of the dialog. I can switch to page width down here if I want a better look. The basic workflow is select the layout or layouts you want in the left panel, set the parameters in the right panel, and then hit print down at the bottom. This drop down at the top isn't relevant in print mode, that's why it's grayed out. With printer selected up here, hopefully these first few options are obvious. With the job type set to normal, you're going to get one sheet of music per page, or one sheet of music on the front and another sheet of music on the back, depending on the duplex settings further down. If you set this to page range, you can type in individual page numbers. 1 is just going to print page 1, or you can separate with commas, 1 and 3, or you can set a range, 1, 2, and 3. Quick warning, you can set different parameters for each layout. This one's set to all pages, and this one's set to printer range. The thing to watch out for is if you select a bunch of layouts to print, in graphics mode you'll see asterisks, or in printer you'll see that nothing's highlighted where something needs to be highlighted. So here I definitely need either all pages or page range. This is Dorico's way of telling you there's an inconsistency somewhere in here. So you can either click through each layout in the left panel and eyeball the right panel, or you can set the right panel again from scratch. So if I set this and give it a second to think, that's going to set all pages for all of these layouts. Anyway, with spreads, you'll get 2 pages of music on each side of the paper, with odd pages on the right and even pages on the left. And it's automatically going to set the page orientation below to horizontal. 2 up does the same thing, but with the first page on the left, second page on the right. And then booklet looks very strange in the preview, but when you actually print it, fold it, and staple in the middle, it'll hopefully make sense. Then page setup allows you to set the paper size, orientation, and any scaling. If you want what you print to match what you see in Dorico, you need to leave this on fit to paper, and you need to make sure the paper size is whatever's set in layout options. And I guess if you're printing 2 pages per side, your paper size will need to be double the page size of whatever's in layout options. By the way, if you click the little arrows up here, you can see what size is defined in layout options for each of your layouts, also how many pages each layout is. Duplex printing may need a little experimentation depending on your printer. Looking at annotations quickly, the crop marks and border options won't do anything unless you're printing on a larger paper size than your layout options are set to, or if you custom scale down. If I set this to 80% and turn on the crop marks and borders, you'll see them. The date and time will put the current date, time and file name at the bottom of each page, and the watermark setting puts in whatever you type. The view options can be helpful if you want to proofread on paper. It prints some of the stuff that you can turn on and off on the view menu. I've got signposts turned on, so it'll show me my Q signpost down here. Let me turn these off. If you want to export, and mostly for me it's PDFs, Dorico has great functionality for that. If you're on Mac, don't use these options down here unless you have a really good reason. If you're on Windows, don't be tempted to go into this printer menu and change to whatever print to PDF program. Click this graphics tab up here. You get a drop down for the file type. If you're exporting to PNG or TIFF, you get a resolution drop down. For PDFs and SVGs, you don't need the resolution drop down, because Dorico renders all the text as fonts, and anything that can be vectored, like slurs for instance, renders as vectors, which means nice small file sizes. This mono color switch does black and white or color. Then you can set your destination folder, and there's a picker here that brings up a Finder window, and each project remembers the destination folder. I love this file name options thing. You can type in or click any of these tokens. So let's say I want to put in the current time. Click time, and Dorico is then going to spit out files that are properly named automatically each time you export. 99% of the time, if you're exporting to PDF, you want the job type set to normal. See how you can't click the page size here? Well, it's grayed out because it's inactive, and as long as this is set to normal, it really doesn't matter. The list of page sizes that would be here is pulled from your printer driver. So let's say you're working on a big orchestral score that's maybe A3 or 18 by 12, but your home printer can't print that big. That big size isn't going to appear in the list. So instead, Dorico exports PDFs at whatever size is set in layout options for that layout. In these situations, you need to remember this is a print preview, not an export preview, so the preview might look wrong. Just check the PDFs themselves and they'll look right. I've got one more tip for you, and that is if you want to export a chunk of music, or even a few systems, you can do that in Pro from Engrave mode. There's a tool in the left panel called Graphic Slices. Click it, then click Create Slice, then click and drag, just like if you were inputting a frame in the Master Pages editor. And you can also tweak the numbers down in the Properties panel. You can name your slice whatever you like, set the format here, resolution here, and set your destination folder. It'll default to wherever the project's saved. Then click the Export button. A cool thing about this feature is it retains the slices, the red frames, in the project. So if you need to make some minor changes, then export the slices again, their locations and names will still be in this panel. So that wraps up printing and exporting, and it's also the end of this course. I hope you found it useful, and thanks so much for watching.